okay, if I do this, it's gonna be more trouble than it's worth.
That's right.
You know, so I'm on.
Steve Harvey has just been hit with a multi-million-dollar lawsuit by
So, Steve Harvey's production company is being sued for sexual harassment.
This the money game. This ain't the black man's game. This ain't the white man's game. This
the money game. But
we in the money game.
People say that money changes people. It really doesn't. You know what I learned about money? Money don't change people. Money allows you to be more of who you really are.
I knew he was having some health issues, and I was really concerned about him, but he would look at me every day and say, I'm good.
You know, there's this common assumption that all the big Hollywood stars are best buddies, given their shared wealth and professional circles. But it seems Samuel L. Jackson doesn't exactly share that sentiment, especially when it comes to Steve Harvey, much to everyone's surprise. I mean, this came after a vacation they took together a few years back. Photos popped up online of Jackson and his wife hanging out with Harvey and his wife at some fancy vacation spot. Back then, with little info about their relationship, everyone just assumed these guys were tight pals. The headlines even screamed things like Life on the Ocean Rave, Pals Steve Harvey, Samuel L. Jackson, and Magic Johnson enjoyed July 4th on luxury yacht with their wives. It looked like a picture-perfect friendship. Fast forward to today, and Samuel L. Jackson decided to set the record straight. Turns out those ocean rendezvous weren't exactly planned. According to Jackson, he and his wife were on their way to their chosen vacation spot of the year when they accidentally bumped into Harvey and his wife. Judging by Jackson's expression as he spilled the beans, he wanted the world to know that this meeting with Steve wasn't some carefully orchestrated Hollywood hangout. It was a pure, unadulterated accident.
Steve Harvey, I hear y'all take vacations together on the yacht or something.
Well, we get on the boat with Magic and Cookie. Steve and Marjorie have their own boat.
Now, this raises the question, why might Jackson not be Steve's biggest fan? Well, for starters, Steve Harvey isn't exactly known for his good character. He's been called out several times for being homophobic. During his appearance on The View, Steve Harvey insinuated that gay men weren't real men and that real men dated women. He said, "There isn't a real man living that can live without one of you. He does not exist. We have to have you." The other guests on the show corrected him, indicating that gay men were real men who simply had different attractions. However, Steve wouldn't budge and tried to explain himself out of the situation. Unfortunately, he didn't offer any apologies or show any remorse to the host, audience, and guests who were with him on the show. Another instance where Steve reportedly denigrated the gay community was when RuPaul and his family showed up on his eponymous show, Family Feud. During the show, Carson Kressley commented on Steve's suit, describing it as toasted plum, to which Steve responded by saying he was going to burn his suit. Many gay fans who watched the episode expressed their disgust about Steve's remarks and dragged him online. The American drag queen Britta Filter wrote, "I watched Family Feud with RuPaul's fam, and Steve Harvey seems problematic. The way that he is referring to us and saying how he's going to burn his suit when Carson Kressley said the color was toasted plum. Jokes are funny, that isn't." Fans tore into Steve Harvey, calling him all sorts of names, including bigot and homophobic, for his quips and comments throughout the episode. They noted that Steve had always used his platform to pass remarks that cast gays in a bad light. Perhaps the most famous of such moments was when Steve passed a distasteful comment about Asian men.
By the way, this is the same guy who rails against people who don't believe in his particular voodoo.
Right, against gay people.
Against gay people, against Asians.
In 2002, Steve Harvey was reviewing the titles of some books that he thought were hilarious when he came across a book titled How to Date White Women, A Practical Guide for Asian Men. Steve laughed for about 15 seconds while the audience watched on, probably wondering why he was in fits.
How to Date a White Woman, A Practical Guide for Asian Men.
Then, when he had gathered himself, the talk show host asked his audience, "Excuse me, do you like Asian men?" To which he answered, "No, I don't." Then he went on to joke about how a book about dating black women would only be one page with the words, "You like Asian men?" "No, I don't even like Chinese food. It don't stay with you no time. I don't eat what I cannot pronounce."
Do you like Asian men? No. Thank you. Stay with you no time. I don't eat what I can't pronounce.
Once again, Steve was on the receiving end of a serious backlash from the Asian community, with many blaming him for feeding into the stereotype of Asian men. Some people were really upset with Steve Harvey for disrespecting and denigrating Asian men. One of the most vocal critics was the Asian American restaurateur Eddie Huang. He wrote an op-ed in the New York Times where he said, "Every Asian American man knows what the dominant culture has to say about us. We count good. We bow well. We are technologically proficient. We're naturally subordinate. Our male anatomy is the size of a thumb drive, and we could never in 1,000 millenniums be a threat to steal your girl." Harvey speaks openly about issues facing the Black community. He is a man of God, and he has a huge platform to speak from. For his own personal profit, he's willing to perpetuate the emasculation of Asian men, regardless of how hypocritical it is. The backlash on social media was intense, and it eventually forced Steve Harvey to apologize. He took to Twitter to say, "I offer my humblest apologies for offending anyone, particularly those in the Asian community last week. It was not my intention, and the humor was not met with malice or any disrespect whatsoever." But some sharp-eyed fans weren't convinced. They felt there was a deeper meaning to his words. According to them, Steve's one-minute monologue on Asian men was actually revealing something about his own preferences. When he said, "I don't eat what I cannot pronounce," they took it to mean that he doesn't like to get down with Asian men. Though they didn't outright call him a racist, many fans felt his comments were discriminatory about his choice of partners. However, there were other fans who thought Harvey's remarks were being misinterpreted. They argued that Harvey was straight, pointing out that he had been married 3 times. Each time he divorced, he had the opportunity to end up with a man if he wanted to, but he still chose women. They also noted that whenever Harvey was accused of cheating, it was always with a woman. So, to them, there was no way he was gay. Yet, there's an interesting case that challenges the Steve is straight narrative. Essie Berry, a civil rights activist who accused Harvey of mistreating her, once also accused him of harassing a transgender woman named Quilandra Harris. Harris hasn't publicly shared her side of the story, but Essie Berry's claims have gained traction. Though Essie accused Harvey of other serious things like gang stalking, discrimination, and fraud, it's the allegation of his involvement with a transgender woman that stuck with people. To be fair, Harvey has been accused of mistreating other women of color as well, not just transgender women, but that detail is often overlooked. Many fans believe that since he allegedly had an encounter with a transgender woman, it supports their view that Harvey could be gay, or at least bi. This ongoing debate about Harvey's preference, coupled with his controversial comments and behavior, keeps fueling discussions and speculation. Essie herself allegedly accused Steve Harvey of having a secret room in his house with a digital lock that only he could unlock. This, of course, fueled speculation about what might be happening behind those closed doors, with some people suspecting that it's where the 67-year-old had his private encounters with other men.
But I'm still going to do my book. That's what I'm going to work on now, because I want it out there to tell my truth, because people continue to try to silence you.
Harvey's association with P. Diddy hasn't helped his public image much either. Diddy has faced numerous allegations of being gay or bi over the years. Despite Diddy vehemently denying these rumors, they persist, giving the impression that there might be some truth to them. Interestingly, news sources once linked Steve Harvey and P. Diddy in a surprising way. In 2019, tabloids were filled with stories about Lori Harvey and P. Diddy being spotted having a great time in Italy with Steve Harvey. The gossip mill quickly churned out stories that P. Diddy was dating Lori, and these rumors spread like wildfire. However, a few fans and conspiracy theorists weren't convinced by the Diddy-Lori dating narrative. Instead, they speculated that the real couple on vacation was actually Diddy and Steve Harvey, with Lori acting as a cover. According to them, this was why neither Lori nor Diddy confirmed or denied the dating rumors. They preferred it to remain as gossip so that Diddy could continue seeing Steve Harvey without drawing too much attention. Before their trip to Italy, Lori and Diddy were seen together on the streets of New York a few times, which fueled the dating rumors even more. But some fans dismissed these sightings as mere distractions to hide what was really going on between Steve and Diddy. To add another layer of intrigue, Lori was spotted wearing a big diamond ring, leading to speculation that she was engaged to Diddy. When fans asked her about it, Lori emphatically denied being engaged to anyone, explaining that the ring was just a fashion accessory. This only added more fuel to the fire. Critics of the Diddy-Lori relationship narrative pointed out that Lori had dated Diddy's son, Justin Combs, a year earlier. The two were seen together at a Super Bowl party hosted by Diddy. Though rumors suggested Lori dated both father and son, Lori shut these down in an interview with E! News. She said, "I've heard I dated a father and son before. Absolutely not true. I've even heard that I'm a lesbian at one point. So, there's been a lot of different things, a lot of stories, a lot of misconceptions." Lori went on to explain that her continued silence has led to various stories being made up about her, some of which even shocked her. She recounted how she's often been romantically linked to men she's never met in her life. "It's so funny because I'm so quiet. There's been so many stories that have been made up about me. I've seen stories about me being fully in love with somebody, and we have this whole relationship, and I'll see the guy, and I'm like, I've actually never even met him before."
So funny because I'm so quiet. Yeah. There's been so many stories that have been made up about me.
With Lori's outright denial of having anything to do with Diddy, conspiracy theorists felt vindicated in their suspicions that Diddy was actually having an affair with Steve Harvey. Interestingly, Diddy and Steve go way back to the 1990s during the height of the East Coast-West Coast rivalry in hip-hop. Steve supposedly supported Diddy during this time, but pretended to be neutral whenever the cameras were around. On one episode of The Steve Harvey Show, Diddy and Snoop Dogg appeared in Steve's class to discuss the East Coast-West Coast rivalry that had turned dangerously violent. During the show, Steve advised the rappers involved to see themselves as brothers in the same industry and to end the violence. However, according to some insiders, Steve's peacemaker act was just for the cameras. They allege that deep down, Steve supported the East Coast side and was backing Diddy while dissing the West Coast rappers behind the scenes. These sources claim that Harvey would talk negatively about the West Coast rappers and then turn around and smile at them as if everything was fine. Now, another reason Jackson might not be warm towards Harvey might have a lot to do with a certain someone, Bernie Mac. Here's the lowdown. Back in the day, when they were part of the same comedy group, Harvey apparently had a one-track mind getting Bernie Mac out of his way. Now that's pretty messed up considering they were supposed to be a team of professionals chasing success together. But according to the grapevine, Harvey had a reputation for being all about himself right from the get-go, and it goes way back. Let's rewind to the early 2000s. If you were tuned in back then, you might remember the legendary Original Kings of Comedy show. But if you missed it, what you know about Steve Harvey's journey is just scratching the surface. Picture this. Harvey, along with 3 other comedy heavyweights, became legends with their comedy tour called the Original Kings of Comedy. The dream team included D.L. Hewley, Cedric the Entertainer, and the man of the hour, Bernie Mac. This wasn't just any comedy tour, it raked in big bucks and left a lasting impact on the comedy scene. Now, here's where the plot thickens. Rumor has it that while they were making people laugh on stage, behind the scenes, Harvey wasn't exactly playing nice. The tension reportedly centered around Harvey's efforts to shine brighter by dimming Bernie Mac's spotlight. The thing was, Harvey, with his smooth moves and aggressive audience banter, was considered the suavest performer in the Original Kings of Comedy. But then you had Bernie Mac, whose style was like a comedic roller coaster, diving into intense jokes that touched on some real-life stuff. Now, rumor has it that Harvey might have caught a serious case of envy over Bernie's unique style, and what started as a minor issue snowballed into a full-blown feud. Also, Cedric the Entertainer, another OG from the tour, spilled the beans, and now the internet's buzzing with this comedy beef. Turns out those long-standing rumors about Harvey and Bernie Mac not exactly being BFFs during the Kings of Comedy tour might have some truth to them. Cedric recently spilled the tea on Shannon Sharpe's podcast, Club Shay Shay. According to Cedric, the feud between Harvey and Bernie wasn't just some backstage gossip. It was real and had its consequences. It even prevented the Kings of Comedy crew from hitting the road for another epic tour. Imagine the laughs we missed out on. But wait, it gets juicier. Back in 2003, Bernie Mac spilled some tea of his own in an interview with GQ magazine, claiming that Harvey was jealous and tried to mess with his movie roles. Steve, not one to stay quiet, addressed these claims in a 2010 interview, expressing how hurt he was by Bernie's words. But fans weren't entirely buying Steve's side of the story. So given Samuel L. Jackson and Bernie Mac's tight-knit friendship, it's becoming clear why Jackson might not be sending Steve Harvey a Christmas card. These guys weren't just pals, they were practically siblings in the industry. You know, the kind of friendship that's so deep, everyone thought of them as family. They even teamed up on the big screen in the movie Soul Men. Now, while you might remember them as bandmates on a wild road trip to honor their lead singer, what you might not know is just how close Samuel Jackson and Bernie Mac truly were. Jackson has been opening up about Mac's life ever since his passing, shedding light on their deep connection.
I knew he was having some health issues, and I was really concerned about him, but he would look at me every day and say, I'm good, let's go, let's hit it. And we would hit it. And it was a joy to work on that movie with Bernie.
In Soul Men, Jackson and Mac played characters who used to be in a band together, embarking on a crazy cross-country journey to pay tribute to their late lead singer. Tragically, Bernie Mac fell ill and passed away from pneumonia in August after they wrapped up filming. To add a surreal twist to it all, Jackson revealed that Mac never got to see the final cut of the movie. Now that's a whole new level of bittersweet. Jackson, star of The Hitman's Bodyguard, spoke fondly of Mac, labeling him a friend. He even spilled the beans that the Ocean's 11 co-stars would crack some jokes at Jackson's golf tournament in Bermuda. But outside of their time on the Soul Men set, Jackson admitted that he didn't get to spend much time with Mac while he was alive. The guy was booked solid with his show, The Bernie Mac Show, a Fox comedy series that had everyone in stitches from 2001 to 2006. We used to talk about blowing up and being famous and doing all this stuff and all of that, said Jackson. Then when he got famous, he was here in LA, and I never saw him because he was too busy doing his TV show every day. I didn't go by and bother him, but I would run into him at functions, and we got to get together. That was who he was, and I appreciate that about him. And I love the fact that when I came to Chicago and I was doing Negotiator, Bernie took care of me. So remember the ending of Soul Men with that heartfelt dedication to Bernie Mac and Isaac Hayes, two genuine soul men? Well, guess whose brilliant idea that was? Yep, you got it, Samuel L. Jackson. Now, understanding the depth of Jackson's connection with Mac makes it crystal clear why he might not be thrilled about the Steve Harvey comparisons. You know how comedians are about their jokes, right? Well, it turns out Steve Harvey may have stepped on a few toes, or should I say punchlines. In the cutthroat world of showbiz, borrowing a little inspiration from your fellow celebs is one thing, but straight up joke theft, that's like stepping into a comedy minefield, which is what Steve did to Mark Curry. So in a couple of recent chats, Mark spilled the beans, claiming that Steve Harvey straight up recycled his material for jokes on his shows. And this isn't a new beef. Mark's been throwing shade about Steve lifting his jokes way back when on Harvey's NBC talk show. And Mark says he already confronted Steve about it in the past, but the alleged joke thievery kept happening.
The thing with Steve Harvey is that he used my material on both his platforms.
Yeah.
After I talked to him, I saw him at Def Jam, I went up and talked to him, I said, man, you're using my...
Mark spilled the tea to TMZ, saying that Steve jacked his Halloween bit, a personal story about growing up. But Steve wasn't having any of it. He straight up denied the accusations, saying Mark couldn't even name the supposedly stolen joke. Things got heated real quick, with Steve telling Mark to get a life and get a career. Steve went on a rant saying he hasn't stolen a joke in 35 years and dared Mark to name the joke he's talking about. He even threw in a grow up, man, for good measure.
Says that you're still stealing his jokes.
Hey man, listen to me.
Yeah.
Now this, I'm getting sick of this right here.
Yeah.
Mark Curry.
But here's the kicker. Mark wasn't just making stuff up. The comedian came armed with receipts, proving his point and turning up the heat in this comedy feud. Mark Curry took his beef with Steve Harvey to Instagram and dropped some serious receipts in a video that's now deleted. Basically, he called out Steve for allegedly stealing a bunch of jokes from him for his show. In this video, Mark compared an episode from his 90s sitcom, Hanging with Mr. Cooper, where he talked about rocking a brown box as a UPS costume for Halloween. Surprise, surprise, Steve made the exact same joke in a 2015 episode of his show. Also, other comedians like Katt Williams jumped in and had Mark's back. Let's rewind the clock to December 2008 when Steve Harvey and Katt Williams found themselves in the headlines. These two haven't exactly been best buds for over a decade, and there's a story behind it. So Katt Williams decided to call out Steve Harvey right before a Christmas season show, and things got wild. Jamie Foxx, who was a radio host at the time, throws shade into the mix by playing a clip of Williams dissing Steve Harvey. Katt on the phone goes on a rant saying, "I want to apologize for what's going to happen," hinting at their upcoming joint comedy gig. But he drops the bomb, telling Steve that once he hits the stage, it's game over for him as the king of comedy. Steve Harvey then calls in, baffled by the whole situation. He tells Jamie and the crew, "I've always been cool with Katt," explaining that back in LA, he didn't even know who Katt Williams was. Imagine that! Steve Harvey asking, "Whoever Katt Williams is, call me." Katt Williams didn't hold back in a recent interview, laying into Steve Harvey. Katt straight up called out Steve for supposedly being jealous of Bernie Mac, spilling the tea on their years-long beef. According to Katt, Bernie felt Steve was trying to mess with his movie roles, even attempting to snatch a role in Ocean's 11, creating major tension. Katt went on to claim that Steve tried to act all nonchalant about not wanting to be a movie star. But according to Katt, Steve was secretly trying to compete with Bernie Mac for movie roles, and that's not all. Katt also accused Steve of stealing material from another comedian, Mark Curry, and allegedly lying about being homeless. In Katt's words, the same Steve that went to go watch Mark Curry do his whole sitcom and then stole everything Mark Curry had. Now, Steve got a sitcom where he's the principal, wearing a suit and rocking a high-top fade, making all black men think he's got the best lineup in the business. And it's a man unit, not the real deal.
The same Steve that went to go watch Mark Curry do his whole sitcom and then stole everything Mark Curry. The same Negro that hated on Bernie with this same thing. I didn't want to be a movie star. No, you couldn't be a movie star.
Katt also called Steve out for supposedly lying about being homeless, saying, "That's my story. That's not his story." Steve Harvey was never homeless. When Mark Curry was touring with him 25 years ago, he was making $3,000 a show in cash and doing 5 shows a week. They just tell the stories.
Steve Harvey telling people he used to be homeless. That's my story. That's not his story. Steve Harvey wasn't never homeless.
Katt didn't stop there, diving into Steve's marital history, claiming Steve said it was his first wife who got him where he is, then switched it up with the next wife who thinks like a man. Katt questioned Steve's credibility and authenticity, especially when it comes to claiming to be the king of comedy. He even spilled that he was offered the chance to be the 4th king of comedy, but turned it down because of how Steve allegedly treated Bernie Mac. Katt said, "Because the whole time Bernie was here, you were acting like you were funnier than him. You stop it. That man was funnier than all of y'all." Katt's not holding back, calling Steve out on his claims and keeping it real about how comedy works. Now, Katt Williams isn't the only one who's had an on-air tiff with Steve Harvey. Recently, Monique turned the tables during her appearance on Steve's show, making it clear that she wasn't there just to be in the hot seat. Monique, with her comedic charm, took charge of the show and spilled some industry tea involving her and the host. She didn't hold back, revealing how she felt like she got thrown under the bus for speaking her truth. So, a while back on Steve's show, Monique dropped some truth bombs about her struggles in Hollywood. The Oscar winner revealed how she got labeled as difficult and blackballed in the industry because she dared to ask for more pay during the Oscar publicity campaign for Precious in 2009. She didn't hold back, saying, "I said no to some very powerful people." But, surprise, surprise, Steve didn't seem to care much about Mo's feelings. It left a lot of people surprised because the Steve Harvey they saw on TV didn't match up with this real-life drama. Well, unraveling the threads of Steve Harvey's personal life sure paints a vivid picture, doesn't it? And Samuel L. Jackson? Well, it seems he's not the only one with a less than stellar view of Steve Harvey. The entire world might be giving him the side eye. Now, we know Steve's got a knack for spinning a narrative to his advantage, so it'll be interesting to see how he plans to tap dance around this one. What are your thoughts on all this drama? Do you think Steve Harvey is getting a bad rep, or is there more to the story? Drop your comments below, and we'll catch you in the next video.